Hello.
It's hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello there.
Special thanks to Onasaber for sponsoring our 90,000 subscriber lightsaber giveaway. All the details are in the pinned comment down below. Our story begins during the pursuit of a bounty hunter on Coruscant. Anakin and Obi-Wan were tracing the bounty hunter who sent some nasty critters to kill Senator Padme Amidala. If they could track down this bounty hunter, then they could learn who hired them to try and kill the senator. To Anakin, this was a very important mission, and he wanted to impress the senator. When he and Obi-Wan entered the bar, he was instructed to look around. Obi-Wan was going to grab a drink. What a weird way to conduct this investigation. But Anakin trusted Obi-Wan's common sense. As Anakin walked around the bar, he garnered looks from people across the bar. Anakin could feel wandering eyes searching him as he danced away from lights shining through the darkness. He was trying to avoid being seen by the bounty hunter until he toppled over a smaller man who accidentally slipped in front of him. Anakin scurried over to help the man up, but he was in a state of perpetual confusion. He was rambling on about how he needed to go home and rethink his life. In his hands, he had a couple of vials full of something. He just shoved his hand forward into Anakin's hands. Skywalker didn't even think about it. He just grabbed a hold of the objects and looked down into his hands without any street skills. He could see people watching the man as he continued stumbling out of the room. Anakin looked back at his hands and noted that they were filled with death sticks. Anakin shoveled them into his pockets and looked back around. No one noticed, and those who even thought they saw something simply dismissed it as it was unlikely a Jedi would ever take some death sticks, right? Skywalker continued until Obi-Wan ignited his weapon and cut Zam's arm off. Anakin quickly got to Obi-Wan's side, and they escorted the bounty hunter out of the bar. She was very adamant on the fact that she was just trying to do a job. That's all. Wasn't anything more than that. Anakin wasn't having any of that, until Zam was killed by a poisoned dart. This kind of halted their investigation, so Obi-Wan told Anakin they would likely have to split up and look for clues.
See you, chump. What the hell?
He suggested that Anakin go back to the temple, and so he did. As he did, he took a gander at the little tubes he had. While Obi-Wan was doing all the serious, boring stuff of a Jedi, Anakin was checking out what they called death sticks. When he took his first step into the world of death sticks, he never turned back. Oh hey look, it's a comment telling me this is cringe. Yes it is. That's the point. Anakin lobbed his head back onto his pillow and looked at the ceiling as it moved before his very eyes. The appearance of an elusive cookie monster and moving walls surrounded him. Anakin was taken aback by its glory, and yet he was so bewildered by its beauty. He got to enjoy the entire process until he felt this incredible desire to eat. Anakin got up and sauntered out of his room. Though his struggles began from there, the hallways were massive and very daunting. When he stepped out into the hallway, he could see the walls expanding. He stepped into the hallway and held onto the walls as he made his way to the food court. He was looking for the sweets, and he eventually got there after what felt like 3 arduous days of travel. Skywalker didn't realize it was like 20 minutes, but he was busy climbing mountains, struggling through mud, and brushing off torrential downpour. This obviously didn't happen, it's inside, you know. He thought it just happened, of course. When Skywalker got to the food, he laid down on a table and looked up at the ceiling and shoveled food into his throat. After what felt like a fortnight, Anakin needed water, and when he got to the sink, he put his head under the faucet and turned it on. He nearly waterboarded himself, but when he pulled himself out from under, he felt like a magi. Of course, the rest was a blur for Anakin, and he woke up with his head partially in the stove and his feet laying on a couple of pots and pans. He was confused, but it turns out the floor was lava, and he took that seriously. As the morning came around, he got up and made his way back to his room and settled in. He was shocked at what he had done, but he wanted to do it again, though he needed more supplies. Eventually, Anakin learned he was going to Naboo with Padme, so he decided that he needed to get some extra death sticks. Before Obi-Wan and him met up with Padme, he told his master that he needed to get something done before they left, and Obi-Wan obliged, letting Anakin get it done. Kenobi went to analyze the dart inside of the Jedi Archive, and his student was rounding up the best death sticks in all of the lower sector. He bought everything he could get his hands on, and returned to the surface. He and Kenobi met Padme, and the two of them were sent to Naboo. Of course, Obi-Wan told his student not to do anything ridiculous or brash, and as we all know, Anakin listens to one of two things, and his ears are not one of them. Padme and Anakin sat on board the ship and talked. Anakin was still coming down from the death sticks from the previous night, so he was chillin'. When I say chillin', I mean this little incapable flirter was able to speak with something with semblance to coherent thoughts. Anakin didn't make Padme's skin crawl with his negative riz because he was busy talking about literally anything else. Of course, their conversation walked its way around to Anakin telling her that he bought something for their trip to Naboo. Padme was appalled, and then she thought, well, it could be fun. Maybe it wasn't the best idea ever, but they were pretending to be civilians, so why not make their trip go by faster? Going back and forth from Coruscant to Naboo or from Naboo to Coruscant was such a drag. Why not make it go by faster, even though it didn't make things go faster? Padme and Anakin grabbed the death sticks and went to the Cookie Monster land. They were hanging with each other and questioning why there was a little hairy man next to them. Firstly, it wasn't a man. Secondly, it wasn't hairy. And thirdly, it was R2 who was just confused. When they got to Naboo, everything was already set. They were just chill. So they moved through the streets of Naboo. However, there was an issue. Padme and Anakin got a nasty case of the munchies. So they had to grab some salty and sweet relief. A local bakery had the goods, and they continued their journey. When they got to Padme's residence in the countryside, they finally came down, which meant both Padme and Anakin had to walk around trying not to laugh. They were in such good relations with each other because they weren't forcing anything and they were just joking with each other. When they were with the Queen and her administration, Anakin and Padme were making faces at each other like school children. They were avoiding being seen as best they could. Of course, one of them was caught. Who do you think got caught? Let's be real. It was Padme. She got caught. Which makes it even better. Padme told the Queen she had an itch on her face that she couldn't get it with her hand. That didn't make sense. But it had Anakin wheezing because he was holding his breath trying not to laugh. When the Queen asked Anakin why his face was so red, he told her that he fell asleep in a sunbathing tube on Coruscant and he got 5th degree burns. Those don't exist, by the way, not like Anakin would know anything about burning. Padme and Anakin ended up on a beach outside of her residence looking at the sky and pointing out colors that weren't supposed to be there. But they both enjoyed what they were doing with each other and said they should do it some more while they were out here on Naboo. During this tour, Anakin and Padme brought a batch of Louis Vuitton bags and tossed them at the Tusken Raiders. They went mental over the prizes and Shmi didn't die, because it's a meme video. Of course, on Tatooine, Anakin told Padme about how much he disliked sand, and then she gave him some death sticks. Bro thought he was Gandhi until he realized he and Padme turned the Lars homestead into a massive sandcastle. Water vaporizing or whatever it was that they were doing wouldn't be so easy anymore. How did Anakin and Padme know what a sandcastle was? How did they know what a medieval Earth castle looked like? Because the script says so.
Roar! They want to roar!
Anakin and Padme sat inside their fortress of largerdom and told each other that they should take this elsewhere. Anakin looked at Padme and asked, "Prestige worldwide?" She nodded her head. Boats and hoes. Oh hey, this video is sponsored by the hit 2008 film Step Brothers featuring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. On another note, Anakin thought this was a great idea. They could really do this and make the coolest thing ever happen. So they grabbed some crayons and began sketching up plans for this. Of course, Obi-Wan had to ruin the fun with a message about blah blah blah. Who cares? Transmit it to the Senate or the Council or whoever. Once their crown sketch was over, they arrived on Geonosis. Turns out R2 was getting tired of being called a tiny furry dude, so he brought them to Geonosis. Padme and Anakin weren't sure where they were, considering Geonosis looks like a red version of Tatooine, so they assumed it was sunset. They walked out into the droid foundry, and after a series of confusing events, they ended up at Dooku's little office. He was trying to negotiate the handling over of Obi-Wan to the Republic, something that neither of them really cared about. Padme thought it'd be funny to lob a death stick at Dooku. She kind of forgot he was a former Jedi, but when he used the Force to catch it, it blew up in his face. He fell out of his chair like the goober he was. Dooku rose to his feet with a quadruple chin rolling out from under his silky beard. He told Padme that they should use her bodacity for good. Side note, I was watching Kung Fu Panda. Bodacity is not a word. However, when Jack Black says bodacity, it becomes a word. Don't at me. Dooku analyzed their plans and realized, yeah, this would be pretty legit. He grabbed the Gucci bag and told them to head to a Solar Sailor. The entire way to the ship, he was telling them about how rad the name of Solar Sailor was. Like, come on, Solar and Sailor together? I mean, who came up with that name? It must be someone really cool that came up with that name. The three of them collectively forgot that Obi-Wan was sitting in his cell spinning around on repeat. On the bright side, a Geonosian put some elevator music on, just in case Obi-Wan was getting bored of the spin cycle. Dooku told the two of his friends that they needed to get their fits in check. So they went on a shopping spree. Why? Because I'm telling the story. Duh. Sky Guy decided he needed straight ice. Ice on the wrist. Ice on the neck. Ice on the blade. He tinted the blade in nothing but gold. He got that roly-roly on the wrist. Who doesn't need a nice hat and glasses to top it off? Also, yes, his hair is longer because I like Revenge of the Sith Anakin's look better than the other one. Sky Guy's neck was so icy that he needed to carry a heater with him. But when you've got Dooku's budget, you might as well go all out. Padme, on the other hand, went for the Supreme Doja look. She got her hair gone and got herself with the mini iPhone because it screams richer than you, ho. She also had to get something from Buc-ee's, and by Buc-ee's I mean Starbucks, duh. Didn't you know they expanded their empire to Coruscant? It's run by Dr. Evil. God, you're so uneducated. Individual commenter that we're going to name Timothy from here on out in every video that I want to break the fourth wall in and definitely won't forget about in the next 24 hours. At this moment, the three collectively forgot about Obi-Wan and realized they needed to get him. So because I don't feel like explaining it, Obi-Wan just showed up on Coruscant with the gang, and Dooku took Yoda out because I said so. They were both given some death sticks and both forgot completely about everything important because it's death sticks and they needed some drip too. As Dooku explained, if they wanted their crayon drawing to become reality, they needed to have the drip. Now, it wasn't Obi-Wan or Yoda's drawing, but they were convinced it was. Obi-Wan got his drip dripping so hard. What was that voice? He followed in Padme's steps with the Supreme logo. He tattooed it onto his Jedi robes and got himself a flashy Gucci belt with a Louis Vuitton iPhone. His glasses rivaled that of Sky Guy, and of course the hat screamed, "Oh my gosh." He got the girls' attention, and when he sauntered out with the Jordans on too, he was all theirs. Yoda got himself a perm and some ice on the neck. On top of that, he took some cash flow and put some glasses on just to fit the epic vibe. With the crew situated, they had to begin their Death Stick empire. Of course, Dooku had the contacts. Oh my gosh, good job, Timothy. You did it. It's Breaking Bad in Star Wars. Jesse and Eisenberg have been supplying all the Outer Rim for decades, and because they had more money in their piggy banks than Jabba and his cousins, they had the hookup. It looked like a GTA 5 mission because the crew rolled up hard. Yoda wasn't with them. See, Yoda had an issue. He had a bad trip and he wasn't speaking backwards anymore. Without his backward speech, the council tried to call upon an exorcist. By the time they got there, it was already too late. The council was turned to the swag side of the Force, and it was obvious by the dapper outfit selected by Master Windu and Plo Koon. Truthfully, as the council descended into the swag side of the Force, Plo Koon sat in silence. Yes, silence. Look at how gorgeous they look. Anyways, on the other hand, Palpatine was unaware of any of this. Okay, back to where we were. Jesse and Eisenberg opened up their facilities, and Dooku couldn't be happier. Twice the pride and double the something, I don't know. He didn't know either. Now time to play the cheesy montage music as they got the crew to work. Obviously, if I could make it more interesting, I would. However, this video, despite popular belief, is not sponsored by the hit 2008 film Step Brothers featuring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Oh look, Dr. Evil. Anyways, they got their little empire situated and began distributing the coolest thingies ever. Death sticks from the supply were a huge hit on all levels of the planet. Dooku expanded these elsewhere. Papa Palpatine wasn't thrilled about this until Sky Gal, yes I'm talking about Padme, shut up, got Palpatine hooked on the goods. No one knew Papa Palpatine had such drip. He didn't pack just one chain, this heavy mofo bought himself 2 iced out chains with a go-go Gucci belt. His hat with the Los Angeles Pod Racers too. See what I did there? Dodgers, Pod Racers, see? Haha. Okay, whatever. Thank you, Timothy, for getting the wordplay. With Papa Palps dripped out, you'd assume the video would just come to an end. But you'd be wrong, because Dr. Evil is actually the biggest mastermind. He wasn't concerned with the light side or the dark side, he was terrified of the swag side, because it meant that they would be too good for business. And since Dr. Evil only cared about $1 billion USD, he couldn't be bothered to figure out why these swag force individuals were going to star Buc-ee's so much. The supply and demand were not his specialities, mostly because his 8 years of evil school were to become a Doctor of Evil. The collective group of heroes grabbed their death sticks and force-fed them to Dr. Evil. He was about to use his sharks with frickin' lasers attached to their frickin' heads and release them, but with the help of a fever dream, Austin Powers, and the crew, they were able to disperse the death sticks to the people of the galaxy and create unity. It was really cool. Special thanks to Louis Vuitton and Gucci for definitely sponsoring this video and stuff. And that, my friends, is our fever dream. Again, special thanks to Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Wee Woo 670, Riri 700, Ozzy Tano, The Eternal Padawan, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Mad Matty Studios, Anakin 003, Forda's Legacy Star Wars, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, Man with 3 first names, Darksaint 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. If you want this list to get longer, or you want to make me upload on a day that I would typically upload, go check out the Patreon. Thanks to the patrons for voting on this video for happening today. Anyways, that was a fever dream. I don't have anything else to say except for goodbye.